All right, sorry guys. I was I'm trying to set all of this stuff up. I'm obviously not a professional streamer, but we're just trying to figure out what it looks like if we move over to YouTube Live. Just give you guys a little bit of live interaction. So, if you guys don't know, my name is Galen Parker. I'm with the Round Two podcast starring Stephanie Nicole. We usually record on Monday nights, and we've been doing it since the beginning of the year. It has been an awesome experience. I've got Stephanie. She's on the internet right now. She's messaging me. So I'm gonna tell her try it now. Who's try it now? I wanted her to see this. So um, we're just trying to get a feel of what it would look like. So for the past, I mean, we're in October, past 10 months. We have been interviewing entrepreneurs, whether they are making six figures a year, six figures a month, or their vision is to one day make six figures. And we're trying to figure out, all right, what made you successful? What made you keep going? What were some of the things that slowed you down? What are some of the failures you have? And we have basically created this huge database of video of just so many stories. It kind of makes me think, if you guys, if you're not doing all right, if you're an entrepreneur, you're not doing all right, you should subscribe to the Founders Podcast. This was a podcast that was put on to me by someone else. The Founders Podcast is great because he basically like reads books about founders, about their autobiographies and stories about them, and then he breaks it all down into a podcast version for you to kind of like listen. And his excitement is so infectious, and so that's kind of what we try to do here. If you see me looking down, I'm looking at notes. I'm mostly just looking at myself, looking at the screen. But that's basically what we created here with the Round Two podcast. Round two. So round one, obviously, is that's when you get knocked out. If you're an entrepreneur, they know that about 70% of all those businesses are going to fail. So, what do you do after your failure? And that is the thing that we became obsessed with over just not just these months, it's been these years of starting businesses, failing. I mean, I started my first business when I was in college. I thought naturally, I thought I was going to be. This is probably even. I can't even say the next Zuckerberg. I thought I was going to be Zuckerberg. I thought I was going to be the next Bill Gates. It was called And Robin Music, like Batman and Robin. It was And Robin Music. We were the business side of music entertainment. We were going to support everyone in all of their business ventures. So we would book shows, we would build websites, we would design merch, we'd do all those things. The problem that I found, because I was a young entrepreneur, and recently we just had a guest on our show. And he mentioned the same thing. I think it was Detroit Mogul. Had a great idea, could not figure out how to monetize it. This is long before a lot of the cool things of social media did. So we just couldn't figure out how to monetize it. So I was like just dumping money into it and just couldn't come out. It made for great fun, great stories, but you cannot dress in stories. You cannot live off of fun. So that business had to be closed down, but that the desire to be my own boss never stopped. And so over the years, I've started and stopped many different ventures. I've done insurance inspections, just all types of crazy stuff, unsexy, unfun things. And so anyway, now I'm into real estate. Love being in real estate, whether it's helping people buy and sell, real estate investing, coaching, all of those. I also do like public speaking coaching. So if you're interested in any of those things, if you're thinking, man, I have a speech that I need to give, I've got a talk I need to give, I need someone to give me some critical haptic feedback, I need to go through a 6 week course. Well, guess what? I got one for you. But anyway, so for today on the round two, we're just trying to kind of get a feel for what it's like on YouTube. And one of the things, oh, I get a message from Stephanie. She says, um, she sent me some data, but I don't really know what that data is. Let me ask her, does the live audience link work? One cool thing about this is that I can kind of do like multiple different things. And I wanted to share something with you guys that I thought would be of um, for kind of just kind of get a feel for. So, entrepreneur.com, there is a writer for them. He is actually a professor at a college, not a local college. And listen, if you ever see this, I apologize 100 times because I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of your name, but I'm going to make a try at it. I have Yoshihiro Yamakawa. Yashihiro Yamakawa. So I don't know if that is the correct pronunciation of your name. If not, I apologize. So sorry. I'm every time you guys see me look down, I'm messaging Stephanie. So I am current. Whoops, I'm currently on live. I think. It says I am. Yoshiro Yamakama, he wrote an article. It's about teaching entrepreneurs why it's good to fail. Here's how to turn that failure into success. That was an article that he recently wrote. It was edited by Karen McIntyre. This came out October 28th. So if you're seeing this live later, that's when it came. It's on entrepreneur.com. So starting a business, why it's good to fail. And the reason why this article resonated with me so much is because that's kind of the whole point of our podcast. There are so many people who start businesses and they're like, oh man, I want to do this. I want to be successful. And then they run into that first little bit of friction, the first little bit of failure, and then da, 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 they give up. And they're like, well, I guess this wasn't for me. But in reality, all of the people who have been successful on our show, they have failed not once, not twice, not three times. They've failed 4 and 5 to 6 times in their business. And so this article I thought was great. So I picked out, I want you guys to read it yourself. It's teaching, I teach aspire entrepreneurs why it's good to fail. Here, how, look, man, read much. Here's how to turn that failure into success. And so I pulled out 10 what I thought was coaching points, important points to kind of take with. And the number one point that I brought in, when I say number one, I just mean actually number one. You would think that I would organize it like the most important, but it's not. These are just actually the points that I pulled out. So number one, embrace failure as a learning opportunity. And I think that is probably one of the things that people struggle with so much is that they think of failure in kind of these black and white linear terms. So like, all right, so I tried something, didn't work, I failed, and I'm done, right? The only lesson, I guess, that they learned from themselves is that they wanted to quit. But in reality, is failure is just packed with so many valuable lessons. Why did you fail? What was it failed? Sometimes you've got like a 10-step process, and maybe only like step 7 failed, but everything else worked great. So you learned that 1 through 6 was perfect, executed, marvelously, masterfully. So now you know, like maybe I tweak something like that. So you've learned all these little things about skill development. It's kind of like I was telling Stephanie earlier this afternoon. It's like being a one-hit wonder. um, it's tough for one hit one. We will only recognize a one hit wonder after they've tried other songs that didn't pan out. It's because their first big one went viral or went crazy, and then they're like, "All right, how do I do this again? How do I reinvent this? How do I reinvent the wheel?" But with a lot of musicians and a lot of artists, well, they've got like little tracks. Maybe the first one it didn't hit, and they learned something from that, and then the second song they grew maybe in their own experience and they learned something from that. And so then they're like, okay, so maybe I'll try this. And so as they're building their skill, their ability, eventually they're going to get a hit. And then all of a sudden it's like hit, 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 hit. You think John Mayer didn't have like the first couple of things probably didn't go great for him, but he started like building incremental little things. I don't know why John Mayer popped in my mind, but you can go John Legend, John Mayer. Maybe we can get out of John's. I don't know, whatever. Coolio. Sorry. But there's just like different. What Coolio is actually a one hit wonder. There's different opportunities for you to grow, and so, but you have to learn from those failures. Um, I would have not learned much. Like think about like Ann Robin music that failed, but it did kind of make me fall in love with the idea of being my own boss. The idea of just like creating something. Business through art was one of the things that kind of stuck in my brain. It's like I created something, and then I was like, all right, it grew and built and it failed. So now I'm like create something else. So like it made me feel like a creative. All right. He also, and this is the article from the entrepreneurs, it's by Yashihiro Yamakawa. Yashihiro Yamakawa. Mr. Yamakawa, I hope that I can one day interview you and you could teach me how to properly pronounce your name because you're such a tight in industry and what your value, your gems and you drop are filled with so much value. All right. So the number one was like, he says, conduct pre-mortems. And so you're probably thinking, like, what in the world's a pre-mortem? Well, if you watch like Law and Order, like I have, or what is that other show? Chicago PD. Like you're familiar with postmortems, right? What they do after the thing's dead, after the person's dead. Like it's the kind of the study, the analysis. Of like we're gonna do a postmortem, so they kind of like go through the whole autopsy and study like what led to this. And so he talks about conducting pre-mortem. So it's basically proactively discussing potential failures to increase awareness and preparedness. So he's looking down the road. maybe it's after the first 1 or 2 weeks or 1 or 2 months of your business, and then you're starting to say, like, okay, this thing is doing okay, but here's all the things that could go wrong. And so they try to adjust those, like, if we don't adjust the supply chain, if we don't adjust marketing, if we don't adjust advertising, all of these things could potentially fail. And so he's trying to give you just the forethought of just like looking at that and trying to figure out, well, what do we do to make this better? So that is one of the things that I want people to do. Oh, look, Stephanie's here. I'm here. You're live. I shared the link to Facebook. You sound so professional. Thank you. Thank you. Aaron Johnson says, "Here's from another page." If you're still here, Aaron, thanks for tuning in. I'm listen. I'm just learning all of this stuff. I'm just trying to like figure it out. So thank you for. I really appreciate that. So back to what I was saying. So one of the articles or one of the points in there is like conduct these pre-mortems. So it's looking at opportunities in your business, things that might have failed, and then we're going to see, what could we do to make them better. What could we like It's kind of like getting out ahead of something. The man who, he sees the disaster and he proceeds to conceal himself. He's looking at the room like, all right, what can I do to fix that? All right, so I thought that was really important. The third one is learn from others mistakes. Duh, you would think so, but due to ego, maybe. Some people figure this can't happen to me, so they refuse to learn from others. But it's important to just kind of like identify common pitfalls like talent, idea, money related issues to avoid. And so you've probably seen some really cool businesses that kind of failed. Maybe it's due to like they didn't have the right talent in place. Just the guy sometimes the guy who comes up with the idea is not the guy who should be kind of executing the idea. So that's kind of something that you want to look at. The other thing that I thought was like really interesting, really important, self reflection. And that is the tough one, right? As a person who goes to a therapist, I can tell you wholeheartedly, I hate it. Right? It's not anything wrong with my therapist. It's just that none of us generally like to point out how we contributed to a failure. But anytime something failed, you know that you probably had a part of it. And so he mentioned self-reflection. Analyze personal contributions to failure to improve future performance. Man, so what did you do? It's like, all right, so what did you do to screw this whole thing up? So maybe it's because you didn't master your numbers. Maybe it's because you didn't have the drive it took. Maybe you looked at yourself and said, well, if I got to the office earlier, if I business planned, if I got with a mentor. And if you've ever watched our show, you know how heavy we hit mentors. We want people to have or to be with mentors so quickly because mentors help you skip steps in like your business process. Because maybe you can fight kicking and screaming through step 1 through 5, but if you're on step maybe 2 and you get a mentor, well, now you can jump to step 7, and that is a huge benefit to you, especially against maybe your competitors, if you have a mentor. So self-reflections, it's helped you to be humble and realize that maybe you need a mentor. Number 5, balance self blame and external factors. Now, that sounds pretty crystal clear, but I'm going to read you my notes. I wrote, while introspection is important, excessive self blame can hinder future endeavors. And it's important that this comes right after number 4, self reflection, because I have found with a lot of entrepreneurs that when things fail, they start to blame themselves. Okay. They start blaming themselves. And then the issue is this: they internalize that failure so much that it paralyzes them. Analysis paralysis, they start looking at this and they think, I cannot do this anymore. I want to give up. I want to crawl up in a little ball. I want to just disappear. And they start just putting so much blame on themselves. And there are external factors that come into way. Think about it this way. There was probably, I always want to say millions, maybe it's not millions, maybe it's, let's just say tens of thousands of entrepreneurs that had a great idea that started January of 2020, right? And we all know what happened in March of 2020. So, did they fail or was it external factors? Well, definitely external factors had to play. I was at a talk last week with Kyle Scheel, and if you don't know who Kyle Scheel is, I don't know how to tag anyone on like any of this, like YouTube Live or any of that. But if you don't know Kyle Shield is, he's definitely someone that you want to kind of check out, because he had a t-shirt business. He had like all these great ideas. You know what, Stephanie, if you're watching this, we should. I'm gonna reach out to Kyle Shield and see if he'll be on the show because he would be great. But we always have like these ideas, but he his thing was like public speaking and public coaching, and he was going to launch it January 2020, and March 2020 happened. And he said like his first like every all the gigs he had for the week they all canceled. Fair enough. Then the month they canceled. Then the quarter they all canceled. And by the end of that first week, all of the gigs that he had lined up canceled for the year. Now think about that for a moment. You're an entrepreneur. You've got, I think he said he had like a kid, he's got a wife, and she's like, "Are we gonna be okay?" And he's just like, "Yeah, of course, everything's fine." Right? And he's like terrified because all of these things are just kind of crumbling down. Now, what could he have done? Now he could have gone to the office, put his head down, and said, "Oh man, I've really tanked my life." But he didn't, because that's what an entrepreneur does. He pivoted a hundred of pivots until you get to the right direction. So he went to something else, and maybe that's something that you have to do. Those are external factors that could affect your business. All right, number six: cultivate a happy attitude towards failure. This is a tough one, and I think there should be more coaching about this, and you almost need a therapist's license to do it in my mind. But essentially, normalize failure and avoid shame or self doubt. There is a shame that you feel when you fail at anything. It's because society gives us this belief that everything we do is going to be golden and it's going to work out perfect. And if you just work hard enough and if you just believe it, you're going to be a success. And that's not necessarily true. So you kind of have to really normalize that things are going to fail. And once you accept that you are going to fail, you will feel an overwhelming sense of freedom. There's going to be an ocean that just carries you along. There's going to be fresh air in your lungs, cool water down your throat, because now that you've realized, like, oh, I'm going to fail. Okay. But that's okay, because that failure is going to teach me something that's going to make me amazing. It's going to show me, it's going to eliminate one of the bad options. Every time you fail, it tells you, like, all right, well, I just identified something that doesn't work. So now I don't have to try that ever again. I can try all the other things. And you keep eliminating, you're like, oh, goodness, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. And so as you whittle yourself down, guess what? You're going to find the thing that does work. So I hope that I hope that helps. I hope that makes sense to people. Um, this is pretty cool. I'm really enjoying this YouTube live, and hopefully, I get to meet and kind of talk to more people here on YouTube land. It's good to see you. I'm like looking at Stephanie's in the coaching. I don't. How do I? I don't even know how to like. I'm trying to look the message, but anyway, thank you for anyone. If no one sees this, if everyone sees this, thank you guys so much. This is awesome. So, anyways, back to who we are. So, again, just to recap what we were talking about, my name is Galen Parker. And this is the Round Two podcast starring Stephanie Nicole. We are a podcast where our job is to help and kind of interview and find the tips and gems for successful entrepreneurs so that maybe you are starting a business on Etsy. Maybe you're starting a local coffee shop. There's a guy I went to high school with, David Dobbins. Shout out to David Dobbins. He's been chronicling his battle to start a coffee shop that is at the courthouse. It's at the corner of Courthouse and Hull Street. And I don't remember the name. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was about to call it Black Rifle, but it's not. It's something else. I can't remember the name of the coffee shop that David's starting, but I hope it is a success. And I'm gonna send him a message. Hopefully, we can come to be out at his premiere. I also run a website called Must See Midlothian, so I'm gonna try to put him up there. But we're talking to entrepreneurs who are trying to be successful, and they maybe they haven't realized how the importance of having a mentor, and that is something that we just harp on our show. But maybe we are your digital mentors. Maybe we are the people who you can kind of turn to through all of our episodes, through all of the shorts, through all of the goofy messages. Maybe we can kind of coach you along. And so today we are looking at an article, just really briefly. I'm not going to take too much of your time. I'm going to take as much time as I want, because it's the internet. You can turn me off anytime you want, but please don't turn me off. We're looking at an article called "Teaching Aspiring Entrepreneurs Why It's Good to Fail. Here's how to turn that failure into success." It's written by Maybe it's Yasuhiro. Maybe it's not Yashihiro. Yamakawa. It's edited by Kara McIntyre. It came out, and I was just pulling out maybe 10 lessons that I learned from reading this article. So number six was cultivate. No, sorry, we already did that one. Number seven, maximize the return on. You think I'm saying investing? You're wrong. Maximize the return on learning. Extract valuable lessons from every experience, even the failure. So w- what I've found in business from the early days of being like a kid working in the parking lot at U Crops here in Richmond, shout out to U Crops. Um, I learned a lot about customer service. I learned a lot about dealing with people. I learned a lot about saying things to diffuse situations that served me years down the road. Every experience, every conversation I have, whether it's a real estate, every conversation, every interaction, I feel like I learned something, and I am I don't even know what the word is. I was going to say insipid, but incessant observer of people. I study how people interact with others. I look for micro reactions in their faces, inflections in tone. That way, and it served me so well because sometimes I'll watch two people kind of like have an experience, and one person's talking, and they come back and they're like, "Huh, that went well," and I'm like, "Did it though?" And then they'll message me later like, "Oh, that thing didn't go well," and I'm like, "Yeah, here's why. Because you didn't notice that when you said this, they said this." Or that, or this, or they made this face, or they had like a wince, or they had a hesitation. I've grown up studying all of those things. It probably came from this idea that I've always wanted people to like me, so I had to study like all the little things to say or do to make sure that I never did anything that pushed people away. So every experience you learn something. It's a valuable lesson that you can extract from all of these. So make sure you do that. Number eight, promote a culture of failure tolerance. This is a big one. This is one of my favorite ones because if you have ever worked for a boss where you're afraid to fail, it means you're afraid to try. Uh, Afraid to fail means you're afraid to try. It means I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to try anything. I'm not going to think anything. I'm not going to say anything that might make me look foolish, might arouse the ire of my employee or my coworkers. And sometimes it's like you don't want to make a fool in front of your boss, sure. But then if you create such a like a toxic work environment, then you don't want to be in full. You don't even want to share your ideas with your coworkers. And that happens a lot, especially when you've got like these power dynamics in jobs where you've got like one guy who he's got like a messiah complex and he thinks that he's the center of wisdom and knowledge and everyone should come. And so when people try to bounce ideas, if they don't get it as quick as he does, or if they don't understand it, then he starts to kind of like tease and ridicule them. All that does is tell people like I don't ever want to just interact with them again. So you've got to promote a culture of failure tolerance if you want to be successful around people, because it's really hard for you as an entrepreneur to lead people without that culture of failure tolerance because people are just not going to want to work with you. And then now you're stuck. You're feeling like you're building something, but you're feeling exhausted because the people that you have around you, they're not, you guys aren't working to the same goal. They're just trying to make their own money and they don't care about building the bigger picture that you're trying to build. It's because you've kind of isolated them and you made them feel bad about it. I don't know. Maybe you made them feel bad about it. So that's something to give. Sorry. So we're going to go into number three or number eight, number nine. Sorry. Number nine. Guys, this is my first time. I'm trying to work on YouTube. So, YouTube Live. So if I say the wrong numbers, please promote a culture of tolerance for me, a failure tolerance. All right. Number nine, inspire risk taking. And man, so it says foster. I wrote down foster a mindset that embraces challenges and experimentation. There's nothing cooler than seeing a group of people and they're like, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that, I'm going to try this. And then the person who's in charge is like, yeah, try all of these things. Like, let's try all of those things. So, inspire risk taking. That is what you can do when it comes. So, it's not a failure. It's like, hey, when you take a risk, it's not a risk if you know it's going to work every time. That's not a risk. That costs you nothing. You had no skin in the game. But when you're like, I don't know if this is going to work, but I want to try just to see, that's the thing that gets us out of the bed. That's like the thing in your stomach that I'm like, man, I hope this works. And as entrepreneurs, sometimes we're playing with huge odds because we're just like, we don't know when we're going to pay our mortgage next. But when it does work, and a lot of times if you keep going, it will work. Every time I talk to a guest on the show, I asked them that we talk about like failures. We just had the Caroline Doll on her show, and she is. just an amazing person. And she talked about the fact that she doesn't really necessarily feel she's got a past failure. She's just got 100 pivots. And I'm like, that's so true. It's like pivot. All right. Nope. Nope. Yep. I'm just going to keep knocking until I get a yes. So inspire risk taking. That is the greatest thing, but not just in other people, inspire it in yourself. Never be afraid. Because if you're afraid to take risks, you're afraid to fail, you're just going to really not be a very happy person. All right. And so number 10, guys, this is the 10th point that I pulled from the 10th point that I pulled from Yasuhiro Yamaka- Yamakawa. Yamakawa. Someone please help me with that name pronunciation. But anyways, thank you guys for popping on if you had an opportunity to watch. But the number 10 thing that I wrote down is build resilience and confidence. Overcoming failures strengthens character and prepares individuals for future successes. Man, resilience, you are going to need resilience. You're going to need thick skin. You are going to need, but you don't also have to do it alone. You can partner with a mentor. You can reach out to us. You can talk to other people and realize that once I started hearing so many stories about other people's and their failures, I started thinking, oh, this show confirmed a suspicion. This show was kind of like a pet project to me. It was like, all right, so I suspect that if I learn from other people's failures, I will overcome my own sense of failure, and that is definitely is what happened. You build a resilience and you have a confidence, and so now I have this belief that I could go into any business and start anything and be a success if I really feel passionate about it. And that's the tricky part, right? You've got to feel passionate about the thing that you're doing. So feel free to kind of look at this episode. I hope you guys have taken time out. I hope that you one day look at some of the episodes that we posted on the Round Two podcast starring Stephanie Nicole. We absolutely love it. As I mentioned before, if you are into podcasts, we're on podcasts, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts. But in addition to that, feel free to check in. Feel free. I don't like I'm like I have anything to do with it, but you should definitely. Yeah, I'm just gonna say it like that. You should definitely check out Founders Podcast. I love it. I mean, I've listened to hours of that. My daily routine is wake up at 5. I go for a 3 mile walk run, and I listen to that, and it's just like, man, we've gone over. Steven Spielberg. We've gone to just like all of the like the guy who started Sam Walton, um, Bezos, Gates, Buffett. I'm the blanking on the director who did Pulp Fiction. Who's the director who did Pulp Fiction? Does anyone know that? All right, I'm not gonna, but you guys know who it is. It's on the tip of my tongue. It's so close. So it's like all these different people. It is fascinating. Another awesome rock star real estate agent here in Richmond. She sent that to me, and she was like, "You should listen to this." Jared, he was listening to this. Like all of us, kind of like just were just diving into this because we're just obsessed with knowing how you can build a business. So, listen, guys. I've been here for 30 minutes. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I just want to thank you guys. I'm going to do this more often. I hope you don't mind. And if you do mind, I don't care because I'm passionate about this and I love it. But again, this is Galen Parker. If you need to reach any of us, Stephanie Nicole, she's on everything. You can Google. She's on TikTok. She's on Instagram. She's on Facebook. She's taking over YouTube. I am the Galen Parker, RVA. You can probably just Google Galen Parker. There's not a lot of Galen Parkers out there. It's not a lot of Galen. You just look at me. You'll find me. Google me, baby. Galen Parker. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Facebook. If you are an entrepreneur and you've got an exciting story, don't don't think, oh, we don't want to hear from you. We do. I want to hear from all of you. I need gems from everyone. So thank you guys for listening. I'm going to figure out how to end this stream. But anyways, take care, guys.